Hi, my name is Tom, and I would like to give you a short overview of a recent article of mine. This is joint work with a former student of mine, Niklas Bang Eriksen, and it's a publication in Review of Behavioral Finance. The title is Corporate Risk and the Humpback of CEO Narcissism. Our main question in this article is there an association between CEO narcissism and corporate risk-taking? And just to give you a very short overview of the result, we do find that there is an association, and we find that there's an inverse U-shaped relationship between CEO narcissism and corporate risk-taking. To the extent that a very low degree of CEO narcissism and a very high degree of narcissism is associated with the same, you can say, fairly low level of corporate risk-taking, whereas a moderate CEO narcissism is associated with in the neighborhood of 12% more corporate risk-taking. So that was just to give you an overview of the results of the paper. So let's go a bit deeper into it. What we're focusing on here is irrationality at the managerial level, not in the investor level. And we're focusing on the personality trait called narcissism. Narcissism is both a trait that has both cognitive and behavioral dimensions. It is inspired by the Greek myth of Narcissus, who was handsome and fell in love with his own reflection and ultimately died. Some of you may think about narcissism as a personality disorder, but in recent years it has been treated as a personality dimension, meaning we're all narcissistic to some degree, to either a low degree, to a moderate degree, to a high degree. So that is how we'll treat also narcissism in this context. The motivation for looking at CEO narcissism is that it is widespread among CEOs. And if we look at the psychology literature, it is a complex personality dimension because it is an inflated sense of self and, like you can say in that sense, a grandiose narcissism. But at the same time, a person who is narcissistic often is very preoccupied with having that self-view continually reinforced. So that leaves Kernish to say it's a high but very fragile sense of self-esteem. And in relation to corporate risk-taking, you can say that this may be kind of a double-edged sword, meaning it could lead to more risk-taking, but it could also lead to less risk-taking if the vulnerable aspects of narcissism actually take over. This is supported by findings in the psychology literature that shows that if we have a grandiose narcissism, then at very high levels of this grandiose narcissism, people tend to have also vulnerable narcissism. So they tend to be vulnerable at the same time. And that is kind of the premise for our study, where we say, well, grandiose narcissism, all things equal, is likely to lead to more corporate risk-taking, whereas the vulnerable narcissism is likely to lead to less corporate risk-taking. And that ultimately leads to our hypothesis. Our main hypothesis is CEO narcissism associated with corporate risk-taking. And given these two aspects, the grandiose and the vulnerable narcissism, we say, well, it could be actually a positive relationship, it could be a negative relationship, but it could also be a non-linear relationship, referring to the finding in psychology literature where the vulnerable narcissism actually comes in when you also have a high degree of grandiose narcissism. Just a couple of remarks on related literature. 3 studies, Chatterjee and Hambrick 2007 and 2011 in Administrative Science Quarterly. They focus on a very narrow sample of computer hardware and software industries and a fairly small sample, but it's very interesting. And what is very interesting is how do they actually measure CEO narcissism. We can send out questionnaires to CEO, but generally we don't get any responses. So we have to find some proxies for CEO narcissism. And what they do is that they make an index. They make an index of CEO's photograph in annual reports, prominence in companies' press releases, use of first singular pronouns in interviews, and then cash compensation and non-cash compensation compared to the second highest paid in the organization. So that means to say, we say kind of, or they say that we're dealing here with a CEO that has a high degree of narcissism if there's a huge portrait or photograph in the annual report, if in the press releases from the firm that the CEO is mentioned all the time, if he or she tends to say I, my, and mine a lot of times during interviews, and when this CEO is paid a lot compared to the second highest paid in the organization. So this is proxies, and they use an index. Okay, and it's more or less the same in Charity Handbrake 2011. Another interesting study is Access et al. From 2016 in JFQA. They look particularly into mergers acquisitions. So they look at CEO narcissism at the acquirer level and CEO narcissism at the target level. How do we then differentiate ourselves from the current literature? Well, first of all, we're looking at a large sample of US manufacturing firms, not only like software firms. We're focusing on narcissism and corporate risk-taking in general, not only, for example, mergers acquisitions. And finally, we also test for the potential non-linear relationship. Methodology, we're looking at 475 US listed manufacturing firms. We're looking at a 5-year period from 2010 to 2014. And our proxy, our default proxy, will show that it's robust to another proxy. It's a CEO LinkedIn profile from 2015. And I'll show you how we do this. So we say, well, the LinkedIn profile is something that the CEO decides how it looks like. And we look at 6 different aspects of this profile. Skills, number of skills, number of connections, and how many previous positions are listed. These are continuous variables. And then we look at whether the CEO has a picture, where he or she has written a summary, and whether he or she lists interests. 3 binary. And we combine these 6 measures. We make them into a scale from 0 to 1 each measure, and then correspondingly we get a measure from 0 to 6 to measure the CEO narcissism. This is an example. Alex Gorski, CEO of Johnson & Johnson. He has 20 skills, 168 connections, 2 previous positions listed, and he doesn't include a picture, summary, and interest, and that leaves him with a score of 1.49. If we look at it in aggregate, then we have a LinkedIn measure going from, theoretically, it could go from 0 to 6. It goes here to 5.8 with a mean of 2.11. And that's our default proxy for CEO narcissism. So what we're doing is to look at the relationship between CEO narcissism and corporate risk-taking. We proxy corporate risk-taking with stock return volatility. And we'll show that it also is robust to other measures. We put it into a regression analysis, and we control for CEO characteristics and firm characteristics. What do we get? Well, if we just, in model 2 here, if we just include our LinkedIn measure, we don't get any significance. But in model 3, you can see that if we include both LinkedIn and LinkedIn squared, then we get very significant result. And we get this inverse U-shaped relationship. So that at low levels of CEO narcissism, an increase in CEO narcissism is associated with more corporate risk-taking, whereas at very high levels of CEO narcissism, An increase in CEO narcissism is actually associated with less corporate risk taking, which reflects, as we talked about before, the psychology literature saying that at very high levels of grandiose narcissism, the vulnerable aspects are likely to kick in. We can see this in another way in model 4, 5, and 6, where we divide it up into subsamples and say now we look at the CEOs that have a low degree of CEO narcissism, moderate degree of CEO narcissism, and high degree of narcissism. There we also see this, that in the low degree we have a positive relationship, at the moderate degree we have no relationship, and then we have a negative relationship with within the subsample of CEOs that have a high degree of CEO narcissism. Are our results robust? They are robust. We, as a proxy for corporate risk taking, our default is using stock return volatility. If we use idiosyncratic volatility, we get the same results. That means that we take out the market development that the CEO cannot influence. And to some extent, our results are also robust if we take ROA volatility. ROA volatility is a more noisy measure. We get the right direction, but not any significance. Maybe more interestingly, you could say, well, then interrupt profile, do I actually believe in this? We also show that our results are robust to using the press release measure, meaning how many times is the CEO mentioned in press releases, and we get the same result. Finally, we're looking at a 5-year period. We're looking at panel data. There's some discussion how you should treat standard errors and so on. So we also look at or make an analysis just based on single years, 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, and we get the exact same results. So it seems that our results are statistically significant and they are robust. Well, it may be that we find statistical significance, but a crucial question is there any economic significance? It may be so small magnitudes that we don't really care about results anyhow. But what we actually find is that a very low degree and a very high degree of CEO narcissism is associated with the same fairly low degree of corporate risk-taking, whereas a moderate degree of CEO narcissism, a moderate degree is associated with in the neighborhood of 12% more corporate risk-taking. And 12% is a number that signifies economic significance. So our overall conclusion is that CEO narcissism is associated with corporate risk-taking, and it is associated with corporate risk-taking in an inverse U-shaped relationship, reflecting that CEO narcissism is a combination of the grandiose and the vulnerable aspects of narcissism. Thank you.